Hi, I'm Marty Beyer, the developer of Visit Coaching. Visit Coaching is an innovative approach to providing support to parents as they visit their children who are in foster care. Visit Coaching is very different from traditional supervised visits in foster care. And I will be explaining some of those differences and how Visit Coaching has been implemented in a variety of communities around the country. Visit Coaching got started by a group of caseworkers who were unhappy with the way traditional supervised visits were going. They described the visits as very time-consuming, and as their caseloads increased, they were spending more and more time each week supervising families who were visiting and finding those visits pointless, as they described it, in many situations. They would say that visits were okay, that nothing bad was happening in the time that parents were spending with their children, but that as caseworkers, they weren't learning enough to contribute to their conclusions about whether a family would be able to keep their children safe in the future. So what they wanted were more productive visits. As we set about to figure out how to make visits more productive, we interviewed parents whose children had been in foster care for 6 months or more. And we learned some things that became very important in the design of Visit Coaching. First, we learned from parents when we asked them, what was the unmet safety need that brought your child into care? That most of them couldn't answer that question. And of course, a lot of them, even after 6 months, still strongly believed that their children had been wrongly removed. Nonetheless, not being able to say what the unmet safety need was that brought their child into care led us to design Visit Coaching to focus on children's needs. And that's been an ongoing part of our work in Visit Coaching ever since. We also ask parents, what's the purpose of visits? And we were very concerned to learn that most of them viewed visits as a hoop they had to jump through. They thought it was a requirement to show up for the visit and sign in, and that the court would hear whether they had been there for a visit. But that was their view of visits. So, needless to say, they saw the visits as the agency's event, that they had to just be there when they were supposed to, rather than what we had assumed and what caseworkers thought they had told parents, that visits were a time for them to spend with their children, strengthening family bonds. So we started to say, informally among us, and then to coaches started to say it to families, that visits are for your children to have fun with you. And even though there's a lot more going on in a visit, it was very clarifying to parents that the purpose is far different than just a requirement that they had to adhere to. We also realized, as we heard more and more about the visit experience of everyone involved, that traditional supervised visits, without anyone ever intending them to, of course, brought out the worst in everyone who was involved. Children were under a lot of stress when they came for visits, because often visits were late in the afternoon, a difficult time for most children. Often children were traveling for long distances before they arrived for the visit. And the visit was typically in an unfamiliar place that wasn't comfortable for the children. So one of our goals was to turn visiting into something that was a much happier experience for children. Likewise, visits were bringing out the worst in parents, who described being triggered when they came into the visiting site, even if it wasn't the agency itself, that visits reminded them of the removal of their children, and every visit brought back those same strong feelings that got in the way of good visiting. Foster parents, other resource parents, kin caregivers describe the experience of visits as also very stressful, especially when children returned from visits and had feelings and behaviors that made them difficult to manage during the rest of the evening after they returned. And for caseworkers, visits were also stressful because they would spend a great deal of time with the mechanics of getting visits to happen, making sure that children were there on time, parents were there on time, and that the often limited visit space was scheduled for that family. So one of the goals of visit coaching is to make this, as one parent described it, our favorite time of the week, rather than something that all of the parties would be dreading. Visit coaching has been implemented in 20 different states by both public child welfare agencies themselves and also through contracts that they have had with private providers. And visit coaches have been a range of individuals. Sometimes caseworkers have been trained as visit coaches. Sometimes case aides or other individuals who previously supervised visits have been trained as coaches. And in some communities, foster parents and others have been trained to be visit coaches. The training is typically a 2-day training where the new visit coaches learn how to engage a family differently in their planning their own family time, and in doing so, learn how to help the visit focus on children's needs. After the 2-day training, typically the coaches leave ready to coach their first family, and then a month or two after the training, they return for a 3rd day where they have the opportunity to present a family that they're coaching with and apply with the group of coaches that they were trained with the original principles of visit coaching that they learned in the 2-day training. Visit coaching is designed to be adaptable. So while there are several key elements of visit coaching that we will go over in this session, communities are encouraged to make visit coaching fit the strengths of their staff and the unique characteristics of the families, the children, and the resource families and their own communities. And so there are variations in the implementation of visit coaching. It is a challenge to implement visit coaching with staff who are currently supervising visits because it requires a very different approach to visiting than they may be used to. It's a challenge for caseworkers to become visit coaches because they wear 2 hats, the hat of the coach and the hat of the caseworker. On the other hand, it reduces the split that often occurs where there is a visit coach who's not the caseworker. And ultimately, caseworkers who become visit coaches describe an improved relationship with families with whom they coach. Continuing now with the theme of implementing visit coaching around children's needs, I want to introduce the umbrella drawing that is used by visit coaching sites, regardless of the form of implementation that they have. And usually they personalize the umbrella drawing, as you see here, with this dad and his newborn and 3-year-old. They take a picture of the family that they're coaching and put it under the umbrella. So you see that one element of this umbrella drawing is the parent's strengths. And here the dad is described as being affectionate and happy to see his children. There, of course, he could have a variety of other strengths that get listed as a reminder that the coach is always helping the parent utilize their strengths in order to meet their children's needs. Then you see the infant's needs and the 3-year-old's needs listed in the umbrella drawing. And this serves a whole variety of purposes, the most basic of which is that it draws attention for the parent to how different their children's needs are. Even children close in age, even children who are twins, have different individual needs. The needs lists that we're hoping for as coaches are very specific to each child, and we are looking for developmental needs and trauma-related needs particularly. Although in the beginning, parents may first focus on the physical needs of their children, giving their children a bottle or a snack, for example. But as the coaching relationship evolves, the needs that are listed in the umbrella drawing are going to evolve as well and become more specific and recognize the unique needs of the child. And of course, over the months, children are developing, and so their needs are changing. You see here as the infant's needs that are directed at building the attachment between this dad, whose infant was removed at the hospital, and his newborn baby. So these needs are about the reciprocal communication, the back and forth that we know builds attachment, especially in a newborn whose communication is limited. Another need that he identified is the baby's need to be soothed, and that may come in part from his own worries about what he'll do in the visit if the baby gets unhappy and is crying, and his being worried that he'll be judged if he can't manage that situation. But the need to be soothed is an important one in all babies, and the parents responding to that need is part of attachment building. You see on the other side, the 3-year-old's needs. She has an important developmental need because she's speech delayed. And so the need to use more words is one that both the coach and the parent will find very gratifying during visits, because the coach can guide the parent in repeating the words of everyday activities that he is doing with his 3-year-old, reading, having snack, playing. And as he uses those words over and over, she is likely to repeat them, which he will find rewarding and is likely to meet her need to increase her words. You also see that she is a typical 3-year-old in needing routines. And this is very hard for parents to meet because they're not living with their child anymore. The old routines that they may have had in their home have been replaced by the routines in the resource home. And then, when the child comes for a visit, there's an important need for visit routines in order to make it possible for the child not to feel out of control, the child not to feel lost. And so for this dad to be aware that 3-year-olds truly need routines will be important in his design of visits. And like most 3-year-olds, she thinks she should be in charge of everything. And so you see 2 additional needs. One, that her leading in the play will be important, and for dad to be able to follow her ideas for preferred play rather than imposing them himself will be rewarding in their relationship and also fit her developmentally. And offering her choices, limited choices, so that she feels in charge of things that are the right things to be in charge of for a 3-year-old, and will be important as well. When we are discussing his children's needs with dad in a visit plan meeting, which I'll describe in a moment, he is likely to also be talking about his own problems. And we know from the early stages of visit coaching that parents get bombarded when they come to the visit with the problems in their lives that are in the way of getting their children returned. In fact, very often parents come into a visit and start talking with the adults, the visit supervisor, the supervisor of the visit supervisor, wanting to speak with their caseworker. And the reason for that is because they've been told that it's important to focus on their case plan, not realizing that these few minutes every week are very precious time for them to jam all of their parenting into. And so are wanting to support the parent in staying focused on his children's needs, being 100% attentive to them for the whole visit, requires providing him with assistance in keeping his own worries out of the visit. And that's where the idea of the umbrella came from. That truly parents do come to visits with a major storm going on in their life, and we want to help them keep that storm out of the visit. So we help them by putting up the umbrella, encouraging them to put up the umbrella to keep whatever's worrying them out of the visit, recognizing that, of course, they will return to their storm after the visit. Parents have given us a lot of feedback about how helpful it has been for them to learn that they can separate their time with their children from dealing with their own issues. And you see here in the umbrella drawing examples of issues that a parent might have. So many parents remain angry about the child's removal, and that's very preoccupying for them. And many parents feel overwhelmed by all the requirements of their case plan and frustrated by the difficulties in arranging the services that are required. Many of them are still grieving the loss of their children, coupled with other losses in their lives. And often parents, especially substance abusing parents, feel guilt about how their attention was taken away from their children, often for a long time, because of their using. And so these issues can be kept out of the visit, crushing as they appear to be, by the parent working hard and getting support from their coach to keep the umbrella up. Of course, reunification is not the only success of visit coaching. What we've found that we didn't realize would happen is that for some families, just being coached to meet their children's needs has helped them recognize that they can't meet their children's needs. And as a result, they have voluntarily planned with the agency for another permanent home for their child, which has been easier for all concerned than a contested process where the parent isn't wanting to give up being the person who would meet their children's needs. So we have considered that a success of visit coaching as well. We develop the umbrella drawing with the parent in a visit plan meeting. That meeting occurs prior to the start of visit coaching. And even if the parent has been visiting already with the child in more traditional visits, we ask them to have a visit plan meeting to begin visit coaching. The visit plan meeting is usually between the visit coach and the parent, and it typically lasts a half an hour. It is separate from any visit and preferably occurs before the first coached visit. In the training, the new coaches see a demonstration tape of a visit plan meeting, which shows how the visit coach follows the parent through their thinking out loud about what their children need, going from one child to the next, trying to identify as specifically as possible the different needs of each child. As the parent is doing this, they frequently talk about their own problems, both why their children's needs weren't met prior to coming into care, and very often the problems that they're having in their life right now, including their anger about their children being removed and their resentment of their child having to visit with them rather than being at home with them. And the coach spends time during the visit plan meeting validating each one of the parents' concerns and recognizing how it is problematic for them in their life, and then returning to the subject of their children's needs. So the visit plan meeting tends to be up and down through the need of each child, into the parent's own issues, back to the need of another child, until by the end of the visit plan meeting, the parent has succeeded in thinking through how they will meet their children's needs. The result that we're looking for is a parent taking charge of their own family time and not viewing it as the agency's agenda, but truly as their own time with their children, organized the way they want to spend time with their children, hopefully as unlimited as possible by the circumstances of the visit. What we want from a visit plan meeting is the parent walking away with a visual kind of videotape in their head, if you will, of what their visit will be like. And so sometimes they talk even before visit coaching has begun about worries that they have, about difficulties they will encounter in the visit, perhaps with their child coming into the visit and being reluctant to leave the resource parent, perhaps for their child and for themselves in leaving the visit and being upset. And that's an opportunity for the coach to explore with them, given the age of the child, how can the parent best focus on what the child needs at that moment of coming into the visit or leaving the visit. And that too helps the parent then anticipate what their family time with their child will be like. Parents often plan things that they want to bring to the visit once they start feeling in charge of their family time. So the food that their child would most look forward to, including home-cooked food, or a game, or a doll, or a truck that their child would enjoy having them bring to the visit, and picking up with the kind of play that they are accustomed to with their parent. So in the process of the visit plan meeting, the coach and the parent develop the umbrella drawing and personalize it with the needs of each child and the parent's strengths and the parent's cloud issues that are above the umbrella. And the coach offers to help the parent meet the children's needs and support the parent in keeping the umbrella up during the visit. Then visit coaching begins. And visits in visit coaching are longer than the usual visit in the sense that we add 15 minutes to the schedule before the children start visiting with their parents for a pre-visit meeting with just the parent and the coach. And we add 15 minutes to the end of the visit after the children leave for a post-visit debrief between the coach and the parent. The pre-visit meeting happens right before the parent sees their children and begins to visit. Its primary purpose is to help parents take a deep breath and put up the umbrella before they go into the space where they're going to be spending time with their children. Rather than coming in off the street right into the visit with their children, they have an opportunity to calm themselves, get focused on their children's needs, and put their own issues out of the way so that they can be 100% there for their children. Sometimes the parent is also reviewing something that they plan to do in the visit that they might have rehearsed with the coach, a different way of engaging the child, for example, in reading, or a different way of helping the child when the child is unhappy and perhaps is throwing a temper tantrum. So the pre-visit time can be used for that purpose as well, to get ready for how the parent had talked with the coach in the last visit about meeting the child's needs. And of course, going into the visit, sometimes parents are going to get some activities ready, some supplies ready for arts and crafts, do a safety check to make sure that anything that's unsafe for their age child is something they can protect their child from. So the umbrella drawing is a very important reference point in the pre-visit meeting. And then the children arrive. And that's when coaching begins in the visit. So the coach is already coached by the visit plan meeting and developing the umbrella and the pre-visit meeting. In the visit, the coach may be much more active than visit supervisors in the past have been. Coaches in training often ask the question, how active should the coach be? And the answer to that, of course, is it depends. It depends on the family and whether they view involvement as intrusive and how the coach can become involved without the parent feeling that they're intruding. It depends on the children and their needs. It depends on how the parent wants to make use of the coach's support. And it depends on the coach and their style. So two different coaches would be differently active during the visit. But they're no longer confined to being outside the visit, observing through a window, or in the corner limited to taking notes. They are interacting in the visit primarily to do the two things that are pictured in the umbrella drawing: supporting the parent to meet each child's needs and supporting the parent to keep the umbrella up. And they can do that in so many different ways. They can do it by hand signals, they can do it by comments, they can do it by supportive recognition when a parent has done what they plan to do. And they may be more active the younger the children, although that will really vary from visit to visit. The coach typically is helping support the parent in being confident, as most parents show a lack of self-confidence when they begin visiting because it's such an unfamiliar situation for them and because they know that they're being observed and that what they do in visits will count in court in determining whether they get their children returned. So parents are usually very worried about how they parent during the visit and very worried if their children have misbehavior and how they respond to that. And so that leads then to their not parenting in a very confident way. And coaches are there in part to be confident on behalf of the parent and give them recognition so that their confidence can develop. Ways of supporting the parent are, as I said, varied, from modeling to encouraging to supporting the parent if there's a rough spot in the visit and that one of their issues is threatening to invade the visit, to help them put the umbrella up and to remind them that after the visit, they can deal with that problem in a discussion with the coach and or with their caseworker and or with the resource parent. Two things occur in training that influence the way coaches provide coaching during the family time. The first is encouragement not to tell parents what to do. And this comes from a recognition that parents have felt in parenting classes very often that they were told the right way to parent and that they viewed that as often class or culture bound by the teacher of the parenting, and that their way of parenting, especially parents who have parented before children came into care, was ignored, was viewed as not acceptable. And parents respond very negatively to that kind of an approach that assumes that there's one way of parenting that's right. And that's part of the reason for the success of children's needs as being the focus of visits, that parents view children's needs as universal, many fewer differences of opinion about what a child needs. And so they're much more comfortable with the idea that they can identify their child's needs, that their coach and their caseworker can encourage them to consider what's known about child development, what's known about trauma, to deepen their awareness of each child's needs. But the child needs focus means that we are accepting of a wide variety of ways that parents meet their children's needs, and that in the culture of their family, the way that they meet their children's needs might be very different from another family, from the coach's own experience, but may be an effective way of meeting their children's needs. And so their family time can be much more like their family, which in turn makes the parent much more comfortable and makes the child much more comfortable in a familiar family rather than with a parent who seems to be doing things according to direction. That doesn't mean that the coach doesn't encourage the parent to focus on the child's needs and consider a variety of ways of meeting those, including things they have learned in parenting class or elsewhere. But that it is not our role as a coach to direct the parent, to tell the parent how to intervene. Of course, the coach is there and will intervene if there's a safety need that isn't being met during the visit. This doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, that's the job of the coach, to encourage the parent to do something to keep the child safe, and if they don't, to step in. And that's been an interesting contributor to the confusion that some counties begin to have when they start visit coaching between, well, is visit coaching supervised or unsupervised? Because the settings in which visit coaching can occur look much more like an unsupervised visit. Many times visit coaching happens in the resource family's home, in the parent's home, in the community, in libraries, in early Head Start, as well as outdoors. And so those visits would appear to be in settings that are usually limited to unsupervised visits, except that the coach is always there. And so they play the role of the visit supervisor in being responsible for ensuring safety, even if the parent isn't attending to a child's safety needs. So visit coaching is a hybrid. It is both. It's got both characteristics of an unsupervised and a supervised visit. Another role, of course, of the coach is if there are two adults who are visiting with children, so that the coach is coaching the co-parenting, whether it's a couple or perhaps a grandparent of a child with a teen parent, where they're all going to be living together and the grandparent and the parent will be co-parenting. And so the coach is assisting in the development of an umbrella drawing that reflects both adults' views of the needs of the children and both adults' umbrella issues, and is encouraging both adults to meet the needs of each child during the visit, so that the end result is information about how that co-parenting occurs and how effective it is in meeting the needs of the children. So visits, coached visits, can last as other visits, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and the coach is playing these different roles of supporting the parent to keep the umbrella up and to meet the children's needs during the entire visit. Some sites have encountered situations where courts are ordering multiple visits every week, and they've wondered, does that mean if we have 3 2-hour visits in a week that a coach is tied up in providing coaching for all 3 of those visits? And the first answer to that question is, it is very important that it's one coach assigned to the family, because the relationship between the coach and the parent is key in the development of the parent's confidence in meeting their children's needs. So it's preferable to have one coach be able to coach all 3 visits in a week. It may not be feasible in terms of the resources available, in which case some communities have had 2 of the visits each week be coached, and on the 3rd visit have the parent take their umbrella drawing in with them, but have that visit supervised by someone else, which could be a resource parent, kin, or a monitor from the agency. At the end of the visit, where the parent may be getting a lot of support from the coach in how to help the child leave the visit without having too strong a reaction, and supporting the parents not having a reaction on themselves that gets in the way of the child's reaction, the children leave. And at that point, the coach and the parent stay for the post-visit debrief. Again, a time when just the coach and the parent are able to review what happened in the visit, and the parent is able to get feedback from the coach about their effectiveness in meeting their children's needs using the umbrella drawing as a reference. After the children leave, the parents and the coach have a post-visit debrief session. The main purposes of the debrief is to give the parent feedback about how they met their children's needs and in what ways they didn't meet their children's needs. And the debrief begins with the sharing of the visit coach's notes. So again, communities have differed in the way that they have implemented visit coaching notes. But what they're provided in training is a model for notes that have 2 really crucial ingredients. One is the notes are taken according to the needs of the child. So if in that umbrella drawing where there were 4 needs of the 3-year-old and 2 needs of the infant, it's those 6 needs that the coach is writing notes about, specifically how the parent did or didn't meet that particular need. So that also focuses the parent's attention in the debrief on the children's needs and how the parent met those needs, what additional assistance the parent requires in order to more effectively meet each child's needs. And secondly, this approach to visit coaching notes is designed to be transparent. So parents have long felt that they didn't know what was being written down by the visit supervisor, and that they would only hear in court months later parts of those reports that they often disagree with, often didn't think describe the strengths of their parenting and only the problems that were seen in visits. So both because our philosophy in visit coaching is that this is the family's family time, and because we believe that direct feedback to parents about what they did to meet their children's needs and what they didn't do to meet their children's needs is the best opportunity for learning. We leave the visit and hand the parent the notes that we have taken during the visit about how they met their children's needs, one need at a time, and what they didn't do in meeting each of those needs. Then the visit coaching form, which we're going to talk about in the post-visit debrief with the parent, gives them an opportunity to do a self-assessment of how they met their children's needs and what they would like to do differently in the next visit. So the post-visit debrief is primarily a time when we discuss the feedback of the coach and when we work with the parent to improve their understanding of a need that their child had in a visit and what they could have done to meet that need better. Sometimes that means that the parent recognizes a need of their child that they hadn't previously understood. And so that's how the needs lists on the umbrella drawing get refined, by the parent's own recognition. Oh, I didn't get it. She was having that temper tantrum because she wanted my full attention, and I was being distracted. And that learning and putting that on the umbrella drawing, my child needs my full attention before she has a meltdown, can be such important learning for the parent. And then they're reminded of that in the next visit so that they can watch for the signs of their child feeling that they're not getting enough attention and respond to meet that need. During the debrief, we are also giving parents feedback about how they were struggling in the visit to meet their children's needs, perhaps because of their own issues that they couldn't keep out of the visit. For example, the parent who falls asleep during a visit, or the parent who is in other ways finding it difficult to have the energy to focus their full attention on lively children who want to play and who want a parent who's fully involved and not one who's distracted by their cell phone or their own concerns. So the feedback from the coach about that can really benefit the parent in the next visit. The coach is also coaching the co-parenting during the debrief, giving parents feedback about how they work together to meet the children's needs and putting together some ideas about how they could improve in the next visit. If an issue has come up during the visit that the parent has kept out of the visit, such as being upset about the child's hairstyle or being concerned about something else about the child, and the coach has promised to help the parent with that issue after the visit, during the debrief, the coach may make it possible for the parent to communicate with their caseworker by email or voicemail about that issue. Finally, the debrief is a time to help the parent look forward to the next visit and not leave the visit unhappy about having said goodbye to their children once again, and to have that unhappiness drive them to a relapse or other behavior that will undermine their success at getting their children back. want to highlight one other element of visit coaching other than the visit plan meeting, the pre-visit meeting, and the post-visit debrief. And that is the importance of partnering between the parent and resource families and the parent and caseworker, and a strong relationship between the visit coach and the caseworker if they're two different people. Of course, resource parents are part of child and family team meetings, and so counties may well be having interaction between resource parents and parents in team meetings, in places where there is still a reluctance for parent and resource parent contact. Visit coaching encourages that contact because when resource families and parents recognize that they're both meeting the needs of the child, it's an experience of shared parenting that greatly contributes to the children's positive experience living in one home and spending family time with their parents. So shared parenting meetings are part of visit coaching in most locations through a variety of approaches. Regular meetings between the parent, the caseworker, and the visit coach are also an important part of the partnering that makes visit coaching successful. We want to make sure that if the coach is not the caseworker, that the coach continues to be in the role of coach and not get involved in the casework itself, and to encourage the parent to be working on their case with their caseworker. And we want to make sure that the coach in no way contributes to a split between the coach and the caseworker in the parent's eyes. So again, communities have differed in the way that they have developed this regular communication beyond the visit coaching notes, of course, which go to the caseworker at the end of every visit. But beyond that, encourage the communication among coach, caseworker, and parent. Some communities have caseworkers who come and observe one coach visit every month or every 6 weeks, and after they observe, they participate in the post-visit debrief. And that's an opportunity for them to see the parent make use of the umbrella drawing and to hear the parent and the coach talk about the children's needs and how the parent met those needs. Of course, this can also occur in child and family team meetings. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the implementation aspects of visit coaching. Part of the 2-day training is for each county to make visit coaching its own by figuring out some of the logistics of visit coaching. So for example, if previously visit supervisors were transporting children to and from visits, how will visit coaching accommodate that so that it's possible for the coach and the parent to have that valuable 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after each visit? If the county has transportation difficulties, then what adjustments have to be made in order for the pre-visit and the post-visit meetings to occur? And also, that's a point where the county begins to talk about, well, what are the logistical issues in having visits coached in other places other than the office for some families. So it's by no means a requirement. Visit coaching can happen successfully in a typical visit room in an agency. But children may be much happier playing outdoors or visiting in another setting, and that is part of what's considered in implementation. Likewise, discussion of the visit coaching notes will become part of each county's unique implementation. And making arrangements for one coach to be assigned to each family rather than if in a county where a supervisor might be supervising a multitude of families and just supervising according to a schedule, not a match between themselves and the family. So these have all been surmountable challenges that counties have very creatively come up with ways of managing the logistics of visit coaching because they have been so excited by how different visits are with the umbrella drawing and the support of the coach for the parents to take charge of their own family time and the parents to have success in meeting their children's needs. So when each coach begins by coaching one family, the results are so dramatically different from a family having supervised visits in the traditional way that agencies are able to figure out how to get around any of the logistical challenges in visit coaching. Thank you so much for your interest in this innovative approach to visiting between children in foster care and their families.